food availability has become an extremely large issue for Americans in the U.S. Um, this is due to a large number of socioeconomic issues, such as like income gaps between the poor and the rich, and just race relations and gender relations and sexual identity relations. Um, but a large issue along with this is the agricultural industry. Agricultural industry is mainly sustained by these large corporations who tend to buy out these small farms. And then this makes it harder for other small farms to compete with them. Small farms are often run out of business by these large companies, and even if these even if these small farms try to compete with these industries in agriculture, they are most likely going to be facing tons of debt and will be run out of business eventually. This is largely due to these industries owning a lot of the things that small farms need. In the article that I read, it detailed how these companies, these large industries in agriculture, are the ones that are selling farmers the seeds and agrochemicals and pesticides that they need to sustain their farms. However, even if farms attempt to compete even with these things, they are still run out of business because of the prices that these large companies are selling their agriculture for, which is a considerably smaller amount than small farms, because small farms need to sustain their own agriculture and their own business, and they often turn to banks to access loans to sustain their life. So a solution that we have kind of seen with our lectures is particularly targeted with the lecture on urban agriculture sustainability, or perennial farming, where we learned how we can establish urban farming yields through using what we already have. We saw with Christian's own garden in his front yard that he utilized the tires that he got from his neighbors to create his own sort of farming system in his yard. And we can encourage this for people to use, and for farms to use, to kind of compete with those really big companies, because they are relying on what they have, and people can also do this in their own homes and rely on what they have. A big benefit with this is that it doesn't take up a lot of space with these urban farming yields. The yield part essentially is talking about how much space this agriculture needs to sustain itself. Excuse me, but and with the tires, we saw that the plants don't really need a lot of space because of the space that they've kind of gotten within the tire. And so this is like perfect for perennial plants, such as like potatoes and radishes and things that essentially grow underground. And we can promote this lifestyle towards people who live in their own, towards lower income Americans who kind of don't really have a lot of space due to the low income housing that is really not good and not spacious. I myself live in a low income housing unit, and the backyard isn't really a backyard. However, me and my family, we could reuse the old tires that we have, or reuse the area that we have, and be able to grow our own food, which will, by using this urban farming yield system, and it would save us a lot of money, and it would also, it wouldn't take up that much space, and we could still have some space for ourselves. So that is like a huge benefit to this. And it could also just help the average American save money for themselves and for like growing families. This would help the agricultural system because we are not particularly buying from these big industries anymore. We can compost what we already have, compost the foods that we already have, like the potatoes and everything. Like as we saw with Christian, he turned his like rotten potatoes into like potatoes that are able to be consumed. And I think we could all be able to do this with our own gardens in our backyards.